opened the door to the Little Furry Library and saw it in there, it was like, ah. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Anna, in case you didn't know, and we're doing a little book haul and unhaul from Little Furry Libraries today. In case you don't know what a Little Furry Library is, it is basically a house-shaped box on a stand, and they're scattered throughout neighborhoods, and they provide a location for book exchange. I'll be showing you some of my finds from Little Furry Libraries recently, and some books that I will be unhauling back into Little Furry Libraries, so hopefully someone else can enjoy them. Also, I'm challenging myself to read 50 books this year, which is twice what I read last year. So that's why I'm filming this video now, because I kind of just want to go through some of the books I've acquired and rekindle the passion for the descriptions that they have presented to me, so I can get excited about reading them. So the first unhaul I have is Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I actually really enjoyed that book, and if you don't know, Coraline is about a girl who uncovers something dark about her new home and has to fight her way back to reality. It is a great book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I would totally recommend it for anyone. This copy I bought from the thrift store actually has like library stickers on it. Not the best spine look either, with the library tag on it when none of my other books have that. But it is completely still readable, like all the pages are in fine condition, and I think someone else would really enjoy the story, so I'm gonna let that go back out into the wild and hopefully make a new friend. And by some strange twist of fate, I am replacing it with another Neil Gaiman book. This is American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I've just been wanting to read more Neil Gaiman in general because I really like his writing, so finding this in a Little Furry Library was such a treat. I'm really excited. Let me read you the little synopsis. Locked behind bars for 3 years, Shadow did his time, quietly waiting for the magic day when he could return to Eagle Point, Indiana. A man no longer scared of what tomorrow might bring. All he wanted was to be with Laura, the wife he deeply loved, and start a new life. But just days before his release, Laura and Shadow's best friend are killed in an accident. With his life in pieces and nothing to keep him tethered, Shadow accepts a job from a beguiling stranger he meets on the way home, an enigmatic man who calls himself Mr. Wednesday. A trickster and a rogue, Wednesday seems to know more about Shadow than Shadow does himself. Life as Wednesday's bodyguard, driver, and errand boy is far more interesting and dangerous than Shadow ever imagined. Really excited about that, and I think it's funny that I'm, unhauling a Gaiman book only to have acquired a Gaiman book. For my next unhaul, it is the book Poetic Heritage that I will be donating to a Little Furry Library. It is compiled by John Press, and it is an anthology of English verse from the 16th to 20th century. I did find it really interesting, but I only ended up rating it a 2.5 out of 5 stars, because with most compilations, there's always some things that you're not really a big fan of, even if some are really good. Across the board, it averaged out to be okay. So would I recommend it? Depends if you like historical poetry. I wouldn't go out of your way to get this book. You might enjoy it, I don't know. To each their own. And I am replacing Poetic Heritage with a slightly poetic book as well, and that is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Now, Sylvia Plath is mainly a poet. I think this is her only novel, but I have wanted to read this book for so long that I am happy to have found it in a Little Furry Library. I was actually really excited. I think I've wanted to read it since I was in early high school, and I think this cover is really cute too. I love bell jars, and to have the little butterflies around, that's so cute. And let me give you a synopsis. Aspiring poet Esther Greenwood has everything going for her, apart from a dark cloud of mental illness which hangs over her. Okay, that is too real. She gains a dream internship at a major New York magazine in the 1950s, but her struggle with depression ricochets her back to Massachusetts. Sent to a psychiatrist by her mother, Esther finds herself on an irreversible path to hospitalization. This book description really struck a chord with me because I, too, write poetry and would love to be published someday, so I kind of feel that relatability with the character, but even more so, I have a plethora of mental illnesses, so reading a book that makes you feel less alone in that aspect is always an interesting and enjoyable time, and I would love to see her take on that. Another book that will be leaving me is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is actually a really nice copy. It's pretty beautiful. The cover is really nice. It's sort of like almost like velvety, but I don't know if I will ever read it again. I feel like most people probably already know what Frankenstein is about, but just in case you don't, it is about a scientist who creates a monster and the repercussions and responsibilities of that. I gave that, I think, a 4 stars out of 5. Because I did really enjoy it, but it was kind of like wading through mud at the beginning. It's a bit slow. While it is a pretty cover, it's not like a book that I feel like needs to take up space in my house. And I'm trying to be better at that. It's hard. It is so hard. So I will be donating it to a little free library ASAP. Now, this book was probably the one I was most excited to find in a little free library, and that is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Oh, I have wanted to read this so badly, and it's definitely going to be my next read after the book I'm reading right now, so I cannot wait. I think my jaw actually dropped when I opened the door to the little free library and saw it in there. It was like, I've heard great things about this book, so it is at the top of my TBR for sure. Let me read you the synopsis. Reclusive Hollywood icon Evelyn Hugo is finally ready to tell the truth about her glamorous and scandalous life. But when she chooses unknown magazine reporter Monique Grant to write her story, no one is more astounded than Monique herself. Determined to use this opportunity to jumpstart her career, Monique listens in fascination. From making her way to Los Angeles in the 1950s, to leaving show business in the 80s, and of course, the 7 husbands along the way, Evelyn unspools a tale of ruthless ambition, unexpected friendship, and a great forbidden love. How juicy is that? So juicy. So it is a historical fiction and romance with some LGBT romance in there as well. We love to see it. So down. Sorry, I feel stupid, but it's just how the emotion is being represented in my physical being. The subsequent book I will be unhauling is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. This book was very interesting. For those of you who do not know who Henrietta Lacks is, that's okay. That's part of the reason why this book exists. This is a true and very heartbreaking story behind Henrietta Lacks, who was a Black woman whose cells were taken really without her consent for scientific research, and they basically changed the game for cell science. But it's also about consent in science. It's about racial inequality in medicine, and also bioethics. Something was like a little off for me, so only 4 stars out of 5, but still very worthy of a read. Another book I happened upon in a little free library is A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. This is not in the best condition. There's some rips on the front and back. It looked like it probably had a dust cover at some point, and then there's also like tape in the back and library sticker. I'm not judging because now I have it, so I don't know. This is a psychological thriller. No, it's a psychological fiction, I believe. Don't know why I said thriller, I guess because those 2 words kind of go together. But I have read a novel by Ruth Ozeki before that I enjoyed, other than some tough subject matter, especially that was like pretty personal to me. So I was interested to read another book by her that was maybe a little bit more comfortable for me. Let's see if I can grab the synopsis for you. In Tokyo, 16-year-old Mao has decided there's only one escape from her aching loneliness and her classmates' bullying. But before she ends it all, Mao plans to document the life of her great-grandmother, a Buddhist nun who's lived more than a century. A diary is Nao's only solace and will touch lives in ways she can scarcely imagine. Across the Pacific, we meet Ruth, a novelist living on a remote island who discovers a collection of artifacts washed ashore in a Hello Kitty lunchbox, possibly debris from the devastating 2011 tsunami. As the mystery of its contents unfolds, Ruth is pulled into the past, into Nao's drama and her unknown fate, and forward into her own future. So that sounds very, very interesting. I love that sort of dynamic of the two characters, so we'll see how that goes. I am looking forward to it. It sounds like weird to say you're looking forward to a book that will probably be sad, but you know what I mean? I think readers get it. We get it. Next, I am unhauling The Innocence by Michael Crummy. Is that how you pronounce it? Crummy? Crummy? I don't know. This is a story about a brother and sister who are growing up on the northern coast of Newfoundland. Newfoundland is actually the province where I was born, so that's part of the reason my partner, who actually gave me this book, got it for me, but it is about their fight to survive and their relationship along the way. This was a hard book to read. There is some really intense content in here. It is sad. It was a really good read, it was important, but I did only give it 3.5 out of 5 stars because it genuinely made me uncomfortable at points, and I know it's probably meant to do that, but it's not always the type of book that I want to read in my leisure time. There was some points where I felt like it was a little bit slow. All in all, I do recommend it. It is a good book. In my mind, a read once book. And instead, I am hauling the LeftHanded Booksellers of London. Now, I had not heard of this book until I saw it in a little free library. Usually I stick to sort of this rule where I'm like, I'm not gonna pick up a book from a little free library that I haven't heard of before, or I don't know the author or anything like that, just because, hear me out, I'm not trying to be closed-minded, but it's more about the fact that I don't want to collect too much stuff, and if I just start doing that, one, I'm gonna spend a lot more time looking through things, and two, I'm gonna have so many books. But this one got me. One, I just thought it was really pretty, so that intrigued me. I love judging a book by its cover. I know. How cliche of me. It sounds really interesting, and another thing that sold me was 2 authors that I quite love have reviews on the back, and usually I never read the reviews on the back. I'm like, stupid, who cares? I don't care what this random person said about this book. But this time it was V.E. Schwab and Veronica Roth, and I was like, okay, wait, I like those authors. Let's check it out. It is a YA, so it's probably a little bit more fluffy. It is a historical fiction and fantasy as well, but let me give you the breakdown. In a slightly alternate London in 1983, Susan Arkshaw is looking for her father, a man she has never met. Crime boss Frank Thringley might be able to help her, but he's just been turned to dust by the outrageously attractive Merlin. I don't know if I read that part before, that sounds a little cheesy, the outrageously attractive part. Merlin is a young left-handed bookseller, one of the fighting ones, who, with the right-handed booksellers, the intellectual ones, are an extended family of magical beings who police the mythic and legendary old world when it intrudes on the modern world, in addition to running several bookshops, of course. Susan's search begins with a list of possibly misremembered or misspelt surnames, a reading room ticket, and an engraved silver cigarette case. Merlin has a quest of his own to find the old world entity who used ordinary criminals to kill his mother. As he and his sister, the right-handed bookseller Vivian, tread in the path of a botched or covered up police investigation from years past, they find their quest strangely overlaps with Susan's. Oh, there's also a Brandon Sanderson recommendation right there, so it's maybe not my typical read, but I'm excited for it nonetheless. Okay, we're almost done here, only a few more books. So the next unhaul I have for you is The Windup Girl by Paolo Bacigalupi. I held onto this book for a long time. I wrote an essay on this book in high school, comparing it with The Handmaid's Tale. Part of me keeping this book was kind of sentimental, but I haven't read it since then. If I remember correctly, it's not like my favorite book in the world. I think I gave it like a 3.5 or 4 stars out of 5. It is good. I do really enjoy it, but I think it's time for someone else to read it. The Windup Girl is about a genetically modified human named Emiko and her interactions with a sort of dystopian businessman named Anderson Lake. It's a sci-fi, but there is a lot of underlying themes of real-world issues, which is why I think it is so interesting, and you should definitely pick it up if you like sci-fi or dystopian novels. There is, again, some hard themes in this book, So be aware of that. I think it's time for someone else to enjoy it. And instead I found this book, Scythe, which I found when we were visiting my partner Brendan's parents in a little free library in their neighborhood. So that was cool. So I have like a little memory of it as well, which is nice. But I have heard great things about this series. It is a YA fantasy. It's also dystopian. Let me read it out to you. A world with no hunger, no disease, no war, no misery. Humanity has conquered all those things and has even conquered death. Now scythes are the only ones who can end life, and they are commanded to do so in order to keep the size of the population under control. Citra and Rowan are chosen to apprentice to a scythe, a role that neither wants. These teens must master the art of taking life, knowing that the consequences of failure could mean losing their own. Sounds good, right? I don't know, that sounds really interesting to me. I like it. The final book I have today to unhaul is Frog Music by Emma Donoghue. This is a historical fiction about a French burlesque dancer in America and the perils of her life and sort of her road to figuring out what happened when her best friend was murdered. Also, this had some like LGBT undertones, which I really wish came to fruition, but they did not. That was a letdown, which is part of the reason why I rated it 2.5 stars. Would I recommend this book? Meh. Another meh. It's kind of like, if you're interested in historical fiction, you may enjoy this, but I felt like I wanted a bit more, and also just the main character, the French burlesque dancer, she was quite unlikable to me. I was not into her. I was like, oh my gosh, like please. No, I don't want to follow your life because you're annoying. And I mean, I think she's not meant to be a likable character, but she's not even one of those characters where you like to hate her or anything like that. I just didn't like her. But it was still an interesting book, and I liked some of the story and learning about more of the historical aspect of things. So that's why I gave it 2.5 stars out of 5. Whether or not you decide to read it, I don't know, you do you. Okay, and for the final haul, I'm gonna take you along on a little story. So I was reading this fantasy series called Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, and I had read 2 of the books out of it, and you know, I was hoping to, you know, read the series. I didn't realize it was such a long series when I started it. So one day I'm walking at a little free library. I'm just about to finish the 2nd novel, I believe, or maybe I had just finished it, and the 3rd book is sitting in the little free library. Now that is the book Heir of Fire, and I was so excited. That was like one of the first books I ever picked up from a little free library. So I was like really, really excited to find something that I knew and that spoke to me. And then in this same book nook, throughout the months, I've been finding novel after novel. So I have 3 of these novels from this book nook or little free library. So I found Empire of Storms and Queen of Shadows and Heir of Fire all in the same book nook. So somebody is reading these books and then putting them in there, and I'm so grateful because then I get to read them, and it was somehow exactly lined up with where I was in the story. So I don't know, it just felt cool and it felt like fate, and it's cool to know that some neighbor is reading that series and then I get to enjoy them after. That is the final thing, and that is YA fantasy. And thank you for coming on this little reading journey with me. Hopefully I will update you somewhere along the way, and maybe we can go on a little free library tour together, go to some and see if we find any cool things. I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you could subscribe to my channel, I would be very grateful. Okay, bye bye.